This episode of the Move Mind podcast was brought to you by CBD Mountain, the sport and fitness CBD. Head over to cbdmountain.com for a range of soft gels, skin balms, oils, and vapes, and purchase online and have the premium quality CBD delivered directly to your door. cbdmountain.com. Thanks for tuning in to today's Move Mind podcast. My guest today is Joe McCullum, head strength and conditioning coach at the University of British Columbia here in Vancouver, Canada. Joe, thanks very much for coming on the show today.
Thanks for having me, Harry.
Yeah, so crazy times. We're coming live and direct in the start of April here, which is, mid-COVID madness. And I appreciate Joe taking time out of your schedule to chat with me today. I know it's hectic, and B, I wondered if we could get straight into the mega task that you've got on your hands. 650 athletes at you're in charge of, and now you've got to probably reprogram all these guys and girls to be able to train and not be in the gym at UBC. I wonder if you could shed a bit of light on that challenge and how you've gone about getting stuck into that challenge.
It's a gong show. I mean, I have two colleagues that work with me. So Amanda and Tavis are, we kind of split our portfolio between 25 teams, 26 if you count the National Swim Center, which trains with us as well. So I have my cohort, they have theirs. And when this first kind of hit, the biggest thing was just getting the kids to realize, do not go to a public gym. Don't use your ones in your apartment buildings. And in retrospect, my biggest regret is not getting them hooked up with someone at Fitness Town or online or Fitness Depot, somewhere to get at least some power blocks or a couple of kettlebells before everything got sold out. But yeah, so basically what we normally do is when we program, we have a team of about 8 to 10 graduate assistants and then about 15 to 20 undergraduates who are all in the kinesiology or related fields. And usually we sit down with our leads or our support staff coaches to kind of teach them how to program. But given how fast this turnaround was, we basically ended up just taking it on ourselves. So we kind of split up our teams a little differently than we might have normally done it, just because it made sense to give similar programs to similar sports. So, for example, I take men's basketball, Amanda takes women's basketball. We realized we could probably give similar programs to the two of them, especially while we're still figuring things out. So we kind of chopped up the program allocation allocation between the three of us and sent something out just to get them started within the first couple of days. And now we're starting to refine things more, because as soon as you send something out, you realize you missed something. That's a complete nightmare because this is so foreign to us. For example, the kids in Montreal and the kids who have gone to parts of Ontario, parts of Calgary have snow on the ground. And since we can't get them in the gym, we have to make the assumption that we're still allowed to be outside by themselves, kind of thing, to do some plyos and sprint work and low level, extensive work and some light conditioning. But, if the ground's covered in snow, that really throws a wrench into things. And then you add in that, some of these kids maybe live in an apartment building with their families and don't really have the same access to someone who might have a garage. Then, some kids, even back, well, I have 2 dumbbells and I have a bar, I have a TRX, or I have a kettlebell or whatever it is. So the program evolves really quickly, and that one program that you kind of sent out for a team ends up being 30, because you have 30 completely unique scenarios, which is a challenge in its own right. So yeah, it's definitely been interesting. Throw in the fact that it's exam time right now.
Oh, really?
So all the kids are in exams, and then depending on the program, we've had for example, men's rugby has been going strong since August, probably the middle of August. Their season actually would have been going until May. They went to the World Cup this year for the university games, So they already have a long season, and that extended it by almost 2 or 3 weeks. Um, Coupled with the fact that they're now losing their season. Um, Baseball, softball, track and field. Uh, um, they've all lost their seasons. Golf. They had some competitions. At least they're able to get under their belt. So you have the psychological aspect of, you've worked your ass off for 4 or 5 years, and your career's got, cut short because of this. So like
Yeah.
the psychological piece becomes really big. So like now layering in our sports psychs and our counselors into everything we're doing, and making sure our language is appropriate and whatnot. So it has been, there's a lot of challenges that you can't foresee in this kind of setting.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. Yeah, sprung on you one day after another by the sounds of it.
yeah, 1 minute after another, like it's literally that fast.
Wow.
You throw into the mix that we have a lot of recruits that'll be coming in who, normally we'd be sending a bit of a program out to them just to kind of introduce them to what we're doing. And now it's a completely different template, different format, different than what we'd want to do. We don't get to see them. It's a lot harder to talk through than it normally would be.
Right.
So like it just, there's going to be always have, we're always going to have challenges. This is like nothing we've obviously ever seen.
Yeah, it seems to me that those who are the best at adapting and going with it are going to probably do the best. The ones that try and hang on to the old way of things, you're going to get left behind to a degree, right? You've got to
Yeah,
switch it
it's
up.
we're all in this. Everyone's in the same boat, right? I keep trying to explain to the kids, like, one guy might have a weight set, but like that's not what's going to make us win a football or a soccer game.
Right.
It's like the consistency. And so what we're trying to preach is be consistent in what you do. We've given them, depending on the sport, like a sport like football, I have the guys training with me 4 to 6 days a week. So I try to keep that into their programming, and even add a little bit more to keep a consistent um, schedule for them. I even added a little more than I normally would for what's going to be thrown their way in the fall if we get back. Um, Sports like the individual sports like track and field, rowing and swimming, a little bit different because rowing, they're not going to be on the water. So if some of them have access to an erg, they can still get some work, but they're now biking or jogging. Um, so they're not going to be doing the same amount of lifting or the strength work that maybe football or a contact sport would do. Um, Track and field or cross country, for example, they're still doing that. They can still train as they would. There's obviously slight changes in their strength work, but we can do it. Swimming, there's no access to a pool. So it completely changes. So every sport has some nuance that becomes a fucking nightmare.
Yeah. Yeah, very interesting. And does it sort of become a case then, Joe, of maintaining? If you can't increase performance markers in this time, like you said, it's not a weight set isn't going to make the difference between winning or losing at this time. Is it just a case of consistency and maintenance until you get a better idea of if a gym's going to
Yeah.
reopen or if we're going to get equipment, stuff like that? Is it just maintenance really the best you can offer?
I mean, we don't ever do maintenance work. Like I'm working with 18 to 22-year-olds. We
Right.
can always get better, like even
Right.
in season, if you manipulate loads correctly, I believe.
Right.
And if there ever is a time, it's now. And to be honest with you, what this is going to really prove when sport comes back is um, it's going to force what we always want out of our kids, which is adaptability, creativity, and motivation. Because we're not there to help them the same way, right?
Right.
If we want athletes to figure things out and be creative on their field of play, this is forcing it right now. So like it's really cool. The kids are, some kids have built wooden squat stands, and kids are working out with tires, and they're finding a way, right? And that's something we always try to preach: like find a way to get it done. Be creative. Learn how to use your tools and resources that you have, so that you can create the best possible training environment you can. Um, some kids are going to have a bigger dip than others. but the idea behind programming the way we have is that they're getting a bit of a stimulus every day.
Okay.
They're, like in every sport's completely different. Football just came off a max strength phase. We literally just tested the week before this happened.
Wow.
We're going into exam time. We're going into the stress of figuring out that life as we know it is completely changed. And um, I've thrown in some maximum isometric work with them, but even that, I mean, it's better than nothing. But you're not going to maintain for the length of time that we're going to be out. So we're basically going back to the 80s where, except we know more, where you use training camp as your way of getting fit
Right.
for your season to play. And by no means do I want that to be the case. I'm
Right.
just being realistic. Is that the work that I'm putting in is has little to do with programming. It has to do how are we going to work back from potential start dates, and what's a safe amount of time for us to actually get back on the field of play for certain sports. Does that make
Okay.
sense?
Yeah, absolutely. So
So
in
like,
contrast, then what would be the 80s training camp approach? Like you've got 8 weeks before season starts, get as fit as you can and hope you don't get injured. Is
no,
that
fuck that. Go golf. Like if you played hockey, you golfed uh, for your off season, or you might have gone for the odd jog. Football probably always lifted weights. You used your camp was your time to get in shape. They were, back then, there were guys that did workouts in the off season, but it wasn't like it is now,
right?
where it's all structured and accounted for, and we know what we know now, kind of thing. That was the norm,
Right.
like you played your season and then you rested because you were beat to shit from the year, and
Yeah.
we didn't have the resiliency, maybe in some cases, from having the benefit of what we know now.
Right. And then yeah, so your task now then is to try and it's difficult if you're trying to hypothetically come up with start dates, right? When we just don't know when start dates are going
Yeah.
to be. Yeah.
So we're working hypothetically like 4 weeks out, 5 weeks out, 6 weeks out, 7, 8, 10, 12, and not just on how coaches can load and how we can load, but how are we going to introduce them back into the filthy environment that is a gym? Like you've seen what we do in there, and like we try to keep it clean, but there's times by 10 o'clock in the morning we've seen 250 athletes.
Yeah.
So I don't know that we'll get back to that. Like I don't know, none of us do, right? I mean, I'd like to, but how do you keep account for kids coming in and like I can't hold their hand to go wash their hands before and after, and even though we'll reiterate it and we'll change the way we operate for sure, but there's always going to be things that slip through. You're dealing with sweat, and um, people are touching everything, so we're going to completely have to change the way we program.
Yeah. Wow. Wow. Yeah, that's a challenge that's never been predicted before, I
Yeah,
suppose.
yeah. Like we're contemplating like um, like creating workouts around like, alternating groups coming in, whatever the parameters are we're allowed, so in our current gym, we've had up to 70 people in at one time. We have 15 racks, which I think you could comfortably fit 45, right? Three to a rack. I don't know that we're going to be allowed to get back to that, at least in the near future. So
Right.
we're working on different parameters of like, okay, if we're allowed 10 people in at a time,
Yeah.
six or whatever, how are we going to alternate this? We're there from 6 a.m. till 7 p.m. pretty much every night already. But how are we going to get in 650 athletes on a regular basis? And how do we keep it clean? So we're going to have to probably shorten workouts. We're going to have to alternate. First group is doing barbells, second group is doing dumbbells and kettlebells, or vice versa. And they have to disinfect at the end. And then the next day it flip flops, like,
Yeah.
so it's going to be
Massive
interesting.
challenge. Yeah, very interesting.
Yeah,
Very interesting. Could change the dynamics of training as we know it, right? And group sessions as we know it.
absolutely.
Yeah. Well, like you say, adaptability is always high up on your priority list in terms of
It
what you
is.
coach and what you believe in. So putting your faith in that as a life skill, I think, is pretty much all you can do at the moment, right? That's the one thing that's going to carry you through in unknown times, is can you adapt and survive in that sense. So I
Well,
think
that's
you're
what we try to preach to the kids too, right? Like that's one of our, tenets of strength and conditioning is, adaptation doesn't have to just occur physiologically or physically, right? Like there's a mental piece to this as well. Like, what I'm hoping is this is going to create some resiliency in our athletes as well.
right.
Out of this, right? They're
Yeah.
forcing something that's not normal. I'm seeing a lot of them doing some really creative things, but I also see a lot of them really struggling. Like if you're in a team sport, you're probably there for a reason, meaning like you crave to be around other people and have, teammates. I'm one of those people, like I'm going fucking nuts. You go from coaching 25 to 30 hours a week, to doing 40 hours a week of Zoom meetings and,
Wow.
another 10 or 15 hours of programming. um, I'm going batty, and I have
Yeah.
a good apartment. I've got nice sunlight. I live right by a park, like I get out every few minutes or every few hours just to take the dog down and do my thing. But like, I can't imagine some of these kids who are living in a 450 square foot apartment with a roommate.
Yeah, losing the plot, right? And what you
Yeah.
mentioned there, you have like sports psych and counselors on hand. Has it been a mixed bag of like some of the kids are doing well and, like you say, building squat racks, and other ones are losing the plot? Is it a bit of a mix?
I don't know if any of them are losing the plot or if any of them, because I haven't. I mean, I just get the frustration in their voice, and
Sure.
you can tell in our meetings. And this isn't just with the athletes. It's like I have 25 staff, right? Like student staff too, who we're trying to keep them engaged with our meetings as well, and keep the learning going that we would normally do. Like we meet every week as a staff, and we're trying to keep that up. And you can just tell the frustration in their voice, like
Yeah. Yeah,
so.
absolutely. Well, I think that's the time to reiterate the adaptability component, and also the opportunity component. I mean, I don't know about you, Joe, but I've certainly looked at this time as a very strangely framed opportunity.
Absolutely.
It's the best way, I think, to look at it. I mean, I've started this podcast, and it's been a pleasure to talk to like yourself and a few other experts in the coaching and sporting world so far, because I thought there's an opportunity here to talk to people and really pick their brains on cool stuff. I think this is similar with the kids and with the faculty staff too. It's a strange time, but there's opportunity here if you look for it. There's no point sitting around and complaining. You've got more time now, maybe, than you've ever had. So use it somehow.
Yeah, I'm encouraging different. Like this is what I'm hoping for is you're gonna see. I don't think we're wrong if we go back to normal. We're fucking idiots as a society. Like
Right.
if this, I mean, necessity is the mother of all invention, right? Like if this doesn't create a change in our habits and our behaviors, we deserve to get fucking ruined by this virus. Like
Yeah.
as humanity, as a species, like
Yeah.
we go back to still thinking that, it's okay to go right back to doing what you've always done. We deserve everything we're getting, and what I'm hoping from this is that it's going to create, um, what's a new normal. And this isn't just on our level; like this is a societal thing where you know people being conscious about social distancing. I think it was Fauci said like we should never shake hands again. Like we just now we're starting to think about this after how many millions of years, um, of the evolution process, and we're getting now to the realization that hey, shaking a stranger's hand may not be the right thing. Like if we don't figure this out, um, we we're definitely deserving of what we get. And what I'm hoping is that you can turn this into an opportunity for, us to change the way we do everything. Like maybe this is going to change, um, the mindset of sport coaches that think you need to have a 4-hour practice,
Right.
to say, hey, we can get everything we need to get done this way. Like the amount of staff meetings that we've been to our campus, it's massive. It's a city, right? There's 60,000 people on any given time.
Yeah.
So like if for me to walk to one end of the campus, it's only 10 or 15 minutes, but that's 10 or 15 minutes on each end, plus your prep time and everything else where if I could literally just go in on my computer and pull this up, it's always nice to see people in person, but this should change the way we do everything. Think about
Yeah.
business, like think about those little things with your, like, going to the doctor to get a prescription. Why? Why isn't a doctor carving out, 6 sessions a day that he has a 10-minute consult for prescription refills and they just call their pharmacy? Like, there's so much time that's wasted. And if we're going to use technology and we're going to do all these things, like, let's really evolve the way we do things. Look at
Yeah.
budgets even. Like, um, everyone's gonna be broke when this is done, or the masses are gonna be broke, including institutions and governments and everything else. Well, maybe we need to look at the way we spend and how, like the idea behind saying that it's okay to um, just piss away your budget because if you don't use it, you're gonna lose it, and start being able to save that for this kind of occasion, because this isn't gonna be the last time we have this.
Agreed. Yeah, it's almost like it seems like it's a bit of a preview of what could come again, and the
It
evolution of
will.
madness. Yeah.
Look what I mean, I'm not trying to put any political spin on anything, but like, it's funny how when this all first went down and everyone starts panicking, like the first two things that are getting sold out are toilet paper and meat. I mean, this came from meat. I mean, if you don't think factory farming is eventually going to have another issue, I know I don't compare factory farming to the wet markets, for example, but like, it's just funny how we're not going to learn from this. You know what I mean? Like, it didn't take long for the wet markets to get opened up again,
Yeah.
right? And it's funny how crazy it's made people about that. But like the um, I guess cognitive dissonance of
Yeah.
people is
Yeah.
crazy to me. And I'm not saying, like, it's not me saying everybody should be vegan or should do this, but like we should probably start questioning things a little differently.
Yeah.
You know,
Agreed.
like, um, and if it doesn't raise questions and people aren't looking for ways to innovate and be more intelligent about our consumption of certain things, um, we deserve it again. Like,
Yeah, we're
it's
doomed to repeat. Yeah, I think we are. I think you're right. I think this is a little preview of how to take note and adapt accordingly. Otherwise, you're going to get slapped with something much,
look
much
at how
harder.
different countries are dealing with this, right?
Right.
Like, look
Yeah.
what's
Yeah.
going on. Look what Taiwan did, right? Like, they got killed by SARS, so they did this. Like, our new norm needs to be that we have to start producing our own PPE. Like, it's a little big brotherish to think of some of the stuff that we might have to do, but is it really to protect the safety of our staff and our kids and our athletes and our older populations? To say, yeah, you're gonna have a thermometer on your head before you come into the gym now. Like, if it lets me get back to work, I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
Like if it means I have to tell a kid, hey man, sorry, you can't work out, you can't come in the gym and you can't go to practice. We all have to be on the same page, including the sport coaches and administration, to say this is how we're doing things now.
Yeah. Yeah. I like what you said earlier about refining. This might be a period of refinement. So instead of taking 4 hours to do a practice, now we understand time pressures a little
Yeah,
bit more viscerally than ever before. So can you cram that 4 hours and get rid of the extra stuff and condense it, like you say, into 1 hour, into 45 minutes? I think that's an interesting a streamlining effect I'd like to see. I've noticed it in my own approach and my own stuff. It's streamlining, get rid of the extra. It's like, although I have more time than ever, time's also more precious to me than ever too. So it's,
totally.
yeah, it'll be
It,
interesting to see that.
it's a like, I don't want to spout like Nassim Taleb anti-fragility shit, but like at the end of the day, those of us who were prepared and have a bit of a stockpile of things aren't as stressed out as those who were panic buying toilet paper.
Agreed.
Like, and we don't, like, Mother Nature will humble the shit out of you, and we're just lucky we don't have to contend with a natural disaster right now.
Agreed.
Like,
Yeah.
it should be a wake up call for us to be, a little more forward thinking in what's going on and a little better at critical thinking. And when it comes to sport, there's going to be a couple different camps. There's going to be the coaches who learn from this, and realized, like you said, that I could probably do 45 minutes of practice and another 45 minutes of film. Now with what we know about Zoom and Skype for Business and all these different platforms, that like maybe we don't need to be on the field for that long.
Yeah.
Like maybe we can change the way we do everything. Um, and you're going to get the other coaches who are going to still go right back to doing what they've always done.
Yeah.
And on the same vein, you have all these coaches who are going to look, how can I capitalize on this time? How can I get a competitive edge? I'm one of those people. What can I do that is going to work for the population that I'm working with, and give us a bit of an edge?
Yeah.
Like everyone's got their own ideas behind it, and for me, I think the biggest part is just keeping the kids mentally ready. Like this isn't a vacation. We're going to work.
Yeah.
We're going to find a way to get back to this, and we're going to be better because of it.
Yeah, yeah, agreed. I remember one thing you mentioned to me before when I came to visit you at UBC was your approach I really like is the approach to low hanging fruit.
Yeah.
Have you transferred the low hanging fruit kind of principle to this time in terms of what you can do with I suppose you're kind of doing it in a sense already by getting the programs out to the guys and girls straight away. Um, I'm trying to think what some of the low hanging fruit options are in this time, because it's one thing to have it
Yeah.
when gyms open, but there's
I mean,
definitely items, right? Even in this time.
totally. And the thing with the low hanging fruit we have to be cautious of is like, there's a reason it's low hanging, and because something's easy, it shouldn't be considered as, oh, it's low hanging, so it should mean it's easy. The concept I'm looking at is like, let's take care of um, the masses in the most efficient way possible. Because what I see is quite often people go right to um, trying to pick the golden apple. Like we miss the boat on so many things when it's right at your feet. So it's not to say that we shouldn't have higher level of thinking and just pick up the rotten fruit that's off the ground and hey, that's what we're dealing with. Yeah, the concept of the low hanging fruit to me is that we're going to take things that are tangible that we can change immediately. Um, I'm not a big fan of throwing the word culture out there because usually it's a scapegoat. Like if things are terrible, you have a shitty culture, and if they're good, you have a good culture. And it's like this is how we operate. This is what we do every day, and we make this the new normal. This is what my expectations are, and I set the bar high, and you're either going to jump over it or you're going to fail. Like there's no in between on that side of things. Um, so for me, the goal again of the low hanging fruit is like, what can I make changes immediately on that need to be changed so that we can be more efficient and either get more impact with um, in a relatively short period of time. The problem is you can't take your eye off the top of the tree fruit. Like you have to have a higher level. It's not just being a bottom feeder and
Right.
picking what's easy. It's at certain times you have to realize that. And in the realm that I'm working with, it's not high. Like I don't think of it as high performance. Um, I have high performers, and we do have high performance athletes, like in our individual sports. Like some of our kids would have gone to Tokyo this year, and our swim center is high performance, but they're they're not as a mass high performance. So when we get to high performance, the low hanging fruit has already been picked, essentially, right? So like you're working with 1% of the population or less, and you're trying to get less than a 1% gain. Does that make sense? Like
Yeah.
when you're running a sub 100-meter dash, you're in a bit of a group that's very unique in this world. So for you to gain an extra 1%, that's a huge, significant um, change in what you're doing. Where in team sport, where I can have an 18-year-old who's never worked out a day in their life and a 22-year-old who's been with me for 5 years, it's completely different in the margins that they can improve. Um, so there's a lot of moving parts in the statement of the low hanging fruit, but uh, for the masses at this level, it makes the most sense to me. Like, what's going to give me the biggest impact immediately?
Amazing. Yeah, I love that you've got that as your kind of meta thought process, especially in this time.
Yeah.
Bringing efficiency in is vital, I think, when there's so much room for consumption of unnecessary shit right now and information. It's like, no, let's streamline down to the
Well,
efficient path.
that's the amount of shit Zoom meetings and I shouldn't say shit. I mean, there's always a reason to learn, right? But like, I would really love for people to take this time to start fucking reading books. Get off Tiger King and all the bullshit. Like, I mean, half these kids have finished Netflix, man. Like, they're even watching foreign films, which is like, that would be my next step of encouragement is get out of watching shitty Avenger films and, engage yourself in something that you normally wouldn't. Like I've recommended some books to some of the kids, like that have nothing to do with their sport. Like
What kind of books have you been saying get stuck into?
um, just read anything. Read fucking Shakespeare. Look
Yeah.
at the language that's being used. Look at read the Book of Five Rings.
Oh
Read
yeah,
the Art of
Musashi.
War. Read
Yeah.
read the Tao of Jeet Kune Do. Read like the things that have parallels. Read some business books. Like if you're in business, read some of the books that are out there that are impactful. Read, like there's so much shit that you can catch up on that you can draw into life and sport that is so much more valuable than learning about the force velocity curve or load monitoring or anything else. Like the Book of Five Rings on the amount of merit he puts into preparation.
Yeah.
That's all we do. That's what we are. We're physical preparation coaches. So, like, just maybe drawing parallels to things that are 300 plus years old, you'll start to realize this is 90% of the shit that's out there is just shit,
Yeah. Big time.
right? I mean, if you start to, especially for our young athletes and our young coaches, start to engage in the highest level of thinking for sport, you're missing everything that we just talked about in the low hanging fruit, which is the building blocks of strength and conditioning. Now, do you need to know about all of these things? Absolutely. Do you need to know about them in your first 5 years? Absolutely not. You should be it should be on your radar. And if you're passionate about it or you're going to do your master's in it, absolutely be a student of what you want to do. But right now, be well rounded. Use this time to find something that's going to engage you outside of that. I'm a huge fan of poetry and writing, and I love the language. I find the language can be so impactful for young athletes to actually understand that um, they're like when we talk about sports psych, for example, like metaphors, analogies, imagery, but that's poetry, right? I mean, like um, look at how they describe, like when someone describes a something in a poem and you can picture it in your head. Is that not what we're trying to teach kids to do when we do imagery with our sports psychology? Like if you read the Red Wheelbarrow, and it's what's his name, Carlos, no, William Carlos, I can't even remember who wrote it, but it's like 3 or 4 lines, but it's like the visual effect that you get from reading this thing that seems so stupid and simple is so impactful.
Yeah, phenomenal. Yeah, engage your brain with what you're reading. Yeah, it's true. That's visualization 101, isn't it? Like,
Yeah,
and I think, yeah, holding a book in your hands, picturing what you're trying to read or what you're reading into a
yeah,
virtual but real landscape internally that's visualization skills. And I think now with screens, a lot of kids don't get that. They don't get that connection,
no.
that wiring. And yeah, I mean, encouraging, I suppose now's as good a time than any, like, yeah, get off Netflix, open a book and engage your brain in a way that's not so passive. You
Yeah, I try to, like, I don't like to be that guy, but like, I think of like, you've seen all the people talking about like you're safe at home and like you're lucky to, we have the internet and everything else. This isn't a natural disaster. We're not in World War II. Um, but I really hope it gives them some time to reflect on how lucky we actually are. Like,
Yeah, we could be. Yeah, exactly. If you're in the third world right now with social isolation, you'd be having some
yeah,
serious problems psychologically and otherwise. And we are really, the world is on pause. We
yeah,
have everything we've ever needed and more.
yeah,
It almost doesn't. It's almost. It doesn't really. That's why I think, in terms of opportunity, it's one of the best opportunities you'll probably ever have in your lifetime. Is right now. As weird as it is right
totally,
now, because you've got all the amenities. Well, not amenities necessarily, but you've got all the structure in place to get stuff done. Especially with the internet, it's like there's so much at your fingertips now that you can
totally.
prepare yourself with.
Well,
Um, yeah, more so than we've ever seen. I think if you there's two camps of people, isn't it? Like you said, even with the coaching stuff, there's two camps. There's people that are going to see that, and then there's people that are going to be like, "Oh, I just can't wait for it to get back to how it
yeah.
was."
Well,
Yeah,
what I'm hoping is kids are, like I said, the kids who built their squat racks. I'm seeing kids are cooking.
wicked.
They're not having Mr. Noodles. They're actually they're baking bread. They're baking. Like, our nutrition team is fucking awesome. Like they're posting recipes or, they're talking about sleep and the power of sleep and these things like that. You lose sight of the basics, uh, when you're in the thick of things, right? And now's a
Yeah,
really good time to reset. Like the first thing I'm encouraging is like stay on your routine. I'm still getting up at 5:30 every morning. I'm still going to bed around the same time, and I'm trying to keep my routine as best I can because I'll go squirrely if I don't. And I know
yeah,
I'm coming right back to it at some point.
yeah.
It might be 1 month, it might be 8. I don't know, but I'm going to try to keep it as long as I can. So, I can at least not lose, any more sleep than I already do.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Now, I wonder, Joe, if we could, pause and go back in time slightly for your
Yeah.
personal, like, athletic background. I know you began as a bit of a high school wrestler, and wrestling was kind of one of your first contact sports. I wondered if you could sort of elicit a little bit what drew you to wrestling as a youngster. Why wrestling over some of the other sports available on the high school program?
Well, rugby was actually my first,
Was it? Yeah.
and
Okay.
then it
Wicked.
was football and wrestling after that. So I took up wrestling, um, a little later, and, I grew up at a really, at the time, our high school was a really good powerhouse for football, wrestling, and, rugby.
Okay.
Multiple like provincial championships or top three always kind of thing. And, I had fucking awesome coaches. Like I was so lucky when I look back on. They tortured us and they beat the shit out of us, but that's just what we did. We were the grinders, right? Like,
Hmm.
you know, um, but it shaped my that was part of what shaped my philosophy today is that I had these coaches who, really believed in the multi-sport model. Like if you played football, you were heavily encouraged to play basketball or rugby or wrestling or track and field or whatever other sport. Um, our football, rugby, and wrestling coaches were all buddies and understood the crossover effect between those sports. Um, it, it, the the ability to stay inoculated for contact year round at that level while your body is resilient enough to do it is highly invaluable in my opinion.
Interesting.
Um,
Yeah, very interesting.
and from a wrestling perspective, my dad boxed. My grandfather was a professional wrestler,
Oh, really?
lacrosse player, boxer, like, back in the day, right? And, so I always loved wrestling. In high school, I was I hated it. Like you're the bigger kid and you don't want to wear a singlet, and it's kind of like you don't know what's going on. It's a bit weird, like, but I fell in love with it as soon as I started doing it, even though it was the hardest thing I'd ever done.
There you
But it
go.
forced me out of that comfort zone, and, what it did for my rugby going into the spring and my football was huge.
Yeah. What do you think it did for your rugby and your football going into it? Can you describe a
It,
little bit? I would imagine mentally and physically you were pretty
yeah,
prepared.
mentally and physically for sure. But like to me, both those sports have a huge element of wrestling in them. Uh, um, I played offensive line, and every time you're going into contact, you're wrestling, and they're not the same. There's similar body positions that you get into, but that's that variability of training, I think. Um, and this is my own personal anecdote. Um, it, it, it got me really comfortable with contact.
Yeah.
It also really got me comfortable with the attributes of sport. Um,
Okay.
which, when I think about strength and conditioning, getting an 18 to 22-year-old stronger and fitter and faster, it's not rocket surgery. Like if you're just moderately intelligent in how you approach things, you should be able to make changes for the masses. Like you can't get everybody, but for the masses, you should. But we neglect a lot of times things that we can do in our realm that can really help those attributes. And by attributes, I mean um, things like fending, having vision, learning how to fall and get back up and re-involve yourself into a play, learning how to absorb or yield in contact, learning how to finish contact, um, learning how to hold tension in different positions and different planes, um, just changing elevation, like all those little pieces that um, you can't get from running from cone to cone, if that makes sense, or from lifting a heavy weight.
100%. Yeah, I like what you said there about like yielding and contact.
Yeah, if you play rugby or football, every sport, field based or court, there is an element of yielding, right? And like it is a skill in its own right. Um, when I talk a lot about like learning how to hold tension, right, or bracing and stuff like that, that doesn't mean you become a rigid, you're a rock. It means you learn how to be fluid, right? You learn how to um, uh, hold tension yourself, but also manipulate it in others.
Uh,
Meaning, like
Right.
like wrestling, aikido, judo, jujitsu, like that's a lot of direction, misdirection, or redirection, right? Well,
Absolutely.
that's that's a concept that, although it's completely different on the offensive line or in rugby than it is in wrestling, for example, but it's a feeling that you start to understand that you only would learn from wrestling, right?
Yes.
Learning how to take advantages of people who put themselves in shitty positions. Like you I think we talked about this, like in jits, if um, you may not be the best technician, but if you find a way to put yourself in a better position, um, you can create far more success than a technician who's doing it from out of position. And
Yeah.
that comes from that feel. And from that feel, you have to practice it, right? So
Absolutely.
for rugby, for example, we had a rugby league team last summer and we spent a lot of time wrestling. I wrestled with them on the
Which,
grass. It's not ideal, but we taught them some basic concepts because it's so different than union that it was a concept that was completely foreign to them about attacking different angles. And
right.
then when we got to union, all the kids who played league, it was like, holy shit, their tackling improved.
Yeah.
They learned how to finish from weird positions
Right.
that they normally wouldn't have. And I'm not saying it's just because of wrestling; it's because we have fucking good coaches. But I don't think it hurt.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. It was an addition in a positive way. It wasn't a useless extra. I think that's
And
one
it
of the big.
engaged them.
Right. Yeah. It must
It's
do.
so
Yeah.
different, right?
Yeah. It's different, and they're seeing things in their own sport, like you said, that they might have played that sport for years and not seen it from that perspective.
Totally.
You've given them a new perspective, which arguably gives them an edge, a sporting edge over other opponents that don't see those things. I think the beauty of wrestling and jiu-jitsu is I've always thought of it as a bit of a four-dimensional kind of sport. The
Mm,
movements and the angles and the positions you get into are so bizarre that if you understand what you're doing in those, surely the simpler positions are going to be way easier to figure out in something like, yeah, a ruck in union or a tackle in league or
yeah.
something like that. It's pretty basic compared to the crazy pins and stuff you get in wrestling. So stripping out the simple parts from wrestling, and like you say, the conceptual ideas of angles, leverage, posture, structure, that kind of stuff, I think that's yeah, I'm fascinated by the fact that you're able to translate that into other
Well,
sports.
you mentioned perspective, and like that's something that's missing in coaching. And I don't just mean in strength conditioning. I mean in sport coaching. Like the kids need perspective, right? They need to understand why they're doing what they're doing, when they're doing it, how they're doing it. And for that to occur, they have to be put in those unique situations. I'm not trying to say we need to do anything crazy here and start, jumping on a Bosu ball, catching med balls, and all that shit. I'm just saying, like, these are positions that they're going to find themselves in one way or another. And um, when I look at wrestling, for example, um, the neck strength that you're forced to garner in a multi-directional, multi-planar way from wrestling is really helpful for building up your neck strength for football and rugby.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm not saying anybody should be getting torqued on their head and neck all the time, but like there's progressions that we do in wrestling that I use for football and rugby, and to some level for hockey and soccer and other sports where concussions are high. So you can draw a lot from other sports.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember when I came down to see you guys in action, there was a good component you did with some of your athletes on sort of, you mentioned to me about like tumbling, learning how to fall,
Yeah.
which was, it was wicked to see them getting them to hit the deck and getting back to their feet in a way that was efficient, dissipating force, but pretty much the break fall element from martial arts translated with a bit of rolling, and it was very cool to see that. And that was, I think, with your football chaps.
Yeah, what's really cool to see though is how shitty they were the first time, because I like to think that like tumbling should be like a bedrock movement for all sports.
Agreed.
I'm not saying you need to be able to do a back handspring and peanut rolls and crazy shit, but you need to be able to learn how to fall, because you do spend a lot of time on the deck. And um, I use a clip from a couple years back. Our volleyball team was playing Alberta, I think, and they had like a 64-second rally, and I counted, I think, 15 times that someone on either team was on the floor. So if you're looking at a sport like volleyball, where you wouldn't think of maybe tumbling as a KPI, you're missing the boat. Like, and it's not just an efficiency thing; it's a safety thing. If they don't know how to fall, you have a high rate of shoulder injuries to begin with. So learning how to brace yourself properly and dissipate forces. Um, but if you're on the ground and you have guys jumping around you or girls jumping around you, we know there's a high level of ankle and knee injuries as well, because the amount of jumping that occurs. And you're on the ground and someone lands on you, it's another issue. And I mean, I know I'm talking about outliers, but by throwing in a few drills in your warm ups on a regular basis, it's not hurting you, right? And it's a full body warm up. And if you look at what we're doing right now, like my biggest concern with our contact sports is that they're not going to have any level of contact and they're not going to have any neural load other than some max isometric work. Um, so getting them in contact with the ground
Yeah,
at
the
some
ground is
pace
always there.
is the best we can do, right? Or in my opinion, it's one of the best things we can do. And I've prepped them for it because we've been doing it all year round on some level, at least twice a week in their warm ups. And again, you saw it. We did it for 2 minutes,
Yeah.
and it didn't look like an absolute shit show because they've done it before. Now, if you saw their first session, it wasn't so pretty, but um, that's part of one of our tenets of motor learning, right? And is they've got to go through it and figure it out themselves. And they know the cool thing about tumbling is it'll humble you fast.
Oh yeah.
You know when you do it right because it's effortless. But you know what? You know when you do it clean right as well because it's effortless. When
Yeah.
all the parts are moving synergistically, you're like, holy shit, that that was good. Like you can
Yeah.
tell when it did that. So it's same with any technique in any sport.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, I like the fact that it's in the martial world too. What's the first thing you learn as a beginner? Is pretty much how to fall.
Yeah.
You're going to get put here quite a bit. It's going to become a common theme that you're going to end up on the floor probably quite a lot, especially in the jits and wrestling world. For your first year, you're going to get flipped around and dumped on your head. So it's good to know. First thing, our beginners program at Lions is exactly structured around that. Is what are thinking in terms of redundancy and what you need to be able to perform before you've even got skill. It's break falling and it's absorbing force. And
Yeah, and if you add into those contact sports the wrist and elbow and shoulder injuries that can occur, um, why add to it by not knowing how to fall?
right,
You know, like um, like the first thing I realized, like when you're getting taken down, like in a double leg, for example, like if you go feet to back, you better learn how to dissipate. And um, the idea that you don't want that back exposure kind of forces you to learn how to absorb, right? So like that's an inherent thing. So instead of landing with a stiff wrist and elbow and just getting your elbow or fracturing your wrist or whatever, or blowing your shoulder out the back of your socket, I'm not saying you're mitigating these things completely, but you're getting a bit of a feel, if you will, for uh, contact. And if you can
yeah.
be supple on the floor and learning how to absorb that, I like to think you'll be able to have a better chance of doing it while you're standing.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And that, I do believe, and I'm sure you do too, there is transfer there. Although there's a specific element in our training when it
Sure.
comes to sport, there's definitely transfer to the tumbling side of things, because when you fall, what's interesting about falling is there's a balance component. And when you lose balance, your whole world stops into just trying to regain balance. Your entire focus is pulled in. In martial arts, it's the kazushi principles. Can you offset an opponent
Yeah.
before you do something,
Yep.
right? Because reflexively the circuits they short circuit, and the whole focus is based on regaining balance. And I think that's true in any sporting situation. When you lose balance, you've experienced losing balance. So if you know reflexively what to do when you lose balance and absorbing, I think it does carry over to all the scenarios, regardless if it's ball sport, team sport, individual.
Fear is probably one of the biggest limiting factors for the age group I work with.
Right.
They're so afraid to fail. It's
Really.
not funny. And I don't know why. Like, I'm like, guys, this is the best place for you to learn how to fail is in the weight room.
Right.
That doesn't mean I'm going to put them at 95% and crush them all the time. But like, I encourage failure at certain times. Like, you may not be good at this, but this is a chance to get better. And, if you look at things like the kids who suck at falling, it's because they can't overcome that discomfort with being off balance or in a weird position,
Right. Okay.
right? And look at things like uh, this is a weird example, but for someone who's beginning how to squat, for example, if you start to load them progressively, when you get to a heavier load, you're going to see their depth change. And there's the odd one who, not the odd one, there's probably more often than not, they'll keep going and they've grooved their pattern and they're comfortable with it. But there's always a cohort that will not get to depth when they put weight on it because they're afraid they're not going to get out of the hole, right? Like they're same with the clean. They'll dump the clean even though they can pull it up to their neck because the unknown is worse to them than just dropping the weight.
Right.
Um, so by putting them in these positions, I'm not saying you're getting rid of it, but um, you're making them a little more comfortable with the unknown.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. And then when it came to your footballing sort of stages, Joe, in the start of your footballing career, did you feel like you had a good edge with the wrestling background?
I didn't realize it until I got into university a little more.
Really?
I didn't realize, like, I felt like a little better in high school, but
Yeah.
as I got older and you start to learn a little bit of the tricks of the trade, um, it became a little more apparent that okay, this makes a lot more sense. This is helpful.
Yeah.
Like I can figure it out um, on my own a little better.
Yeah. Yeah. And you had a full scholarship at Utah,
Yeah, University of Utah. Yeah.
University of Utah, for on a football scholarship. And did you notice any of the other chaps there alongside? Did they have any of them have a wrestling?
A few of them did. Almost everybody I played with had some um, other sports they played. The skill guys probably played basketball, track and field. A couple of the big guys played basketball. A few guys wrestled. Not many played rugby because at the time it wasn't as big. But I was in Utah, which has a big Polynesian community. So a lot
Oh
of the
yeah,
guys had
big
had
boys.
played rugby for the most part. which again, there's a good carryover. Like if you want to go into the biomechanics of a scrum with say an offensive lineman blocking, there's some similarities. Tackling, there's some similarities. Bending, like there's definitely some parity there that's kind of valuable for the sport.
Yeah, and when it comes to you're coaching a lot of football athletes at the moment. In terms of career length, like how long can they expect to be playing for? I know it varies from person to person, but is there a kind of time frame of
Yeah,
how
it's
long?
not long.
It's not long.
Football's unique because, well, every sport's unique. I shouldn't say football, but it's a contact sport with ridiculous collisions with the biggest freaks of nature. At the NFL level, that is.
Right,
But professionally, I think in the NFL, the average lifespan is less than 2 years.
right, right.
Um, I'd love to see the numbers on the NCAA with dropout. Um, the injuries can sustain with the advent of strength and conditioning. Um, we're all bigger, faster, stronger. Add in, you have pads on. Um, it completely changes the dynamic. There's a reason why good football coaches are leveraging rugby coaches to teach them how to tackle. There's a reason why good rugby coaches are leveraging wrestling coaches to teach them how to do a double leg and a split level drop and variations in changing elevation and using momentum for these things, right? The nature of football itself, it is a game of inches, right? Which is different than rugby, for example. So that's one piece that inherently creates bigger contacts, which leads to bigger injuries. But for most open field tackles, and I would say easily 75-80% of the time, they're not necessary, but everybody wants to make that big hit. It's not sexy just to tackle a guy and stop him. They want to knock his helmet off, which is a mentality that's different than other sports, where rugby, you want to not only tackle him, you want to try to re-involve yourself so you can poach the ball, right? So that, again, that goes back to that tumbling piece. Is like, how am I going to create the best level of success from a shitty position?
Right.
So,
Yeah, yeah.
um,
The rules demand it almost. Yeah, the elements of the game demand you get back to your feet, get the ball, or be an active
yeah,
member ASAP. Yeah. Whereas American football, you're just trying to get the
the
play
play stops.
stops. Yeah.
Yeah. Unless
Yeah.
he fumbles the ball, the play is stopped on the whistle, right, and it restarts, which is completely unique to that game.
Yeah.
Um, at the Division One level and the pro level, you might it's different than the Canadian game. You may have 95 plays in a game, say, right? So that's a lot of contacts, especially in the offensive line, or where you're not getting subbed out. Um, like a running back or a receiver might get subbed out for specific um, situations that are on the field, right? And they're not always going to have contact.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. So you're at Utah. You've done your university kind of scholarship, and you're playing alongside. Was that the time you decided that you wanted to be an S&C coach? How did you kind of come along to that realization?
Um, I was always a meathead. Like I always loved lifting, and I like the gym environment. I originally wanted to just get my degree and get into coaching high school because I really loved coaching. Um, so I was coaching wrestling, rugby, and football whenever I'd come back, and
Oh, really?
yeah, I always was. I loved coaching, partly because I had such an impact from my coaches in high school. Like they made it such a welcome environment to want to be involved in it. And I I was originally an English major
Okay.
when I was in Utah, and I started taking some exercise science classes just because I liked it, and I ended up switching over
Okay.
when I was there. And when I was done my career, my plan was to finish up. I graduated um, in the at the end of my career, and I had one class after our last game in the second term. So I was just finishing that off, and I said, "Well, can I volunteer in the weight room?" And I started volunteering, and within 2 years, I was the main assistant for football and worked my way up through the ranks there. And I started working in the weight room, and then I really fell in love with that. Um, and then after 2 years, I'd come home once in a while and I'd meet up with people who were um, kind of interested in the strength and conditioning realm, which was at the time it was pretty new, right? Like keep in
Yeah.
mind this industry professionally only 25 years old. I mean, it's been around for a long time, but like where like people are making a living as being solely a strength and conditioning coach, that wasn't a thing that long ago.
Right.
Right? So we're literally still figuring shit out, right? And I came back. I started working for Level 10 Fitness in North Van, and it was a bit of a grind getting started because it still wasn't a thing here. Like people weren't understanding it. So I started there, and I worked there for 12 years, building up clientele, and I was their kind of director of high performance. So I kind of and managed the place and oversaw the staff and whatnot, the physio and um, our therapists and whatnot, and kind of did a lot of um, uh, mentorship, if you will, to our staff and learning and collaboration with our staff. Um, and then the job at UBC kind of opened up, and I thought, you know what, I need to get out of my comfort zone here. And you know, I'm one of those guys who's hypercritical of everything, and I had a couple kids who had worked for me who were ex-football players or athletes at UBC, and I'd worked with a lot of kids who had been there. I actually, when I first got back from the States, I was working with UBC football and basketball and volleyball a little bit, like as a contractor through Level 10. And I always thought, fuck, it'd be awesome if they can get their shit together and realize the value of this. And it just kind of came at the right time, and I applied and got the job and was able to go from there. But I kind of felt like I needed to get out of the comfort zone. I took a pay cut for it. I added probably 20 extra hours a week to my schedule and took 10 years off my life in the first couple of years. But um, it's what I wanted to do, and I'm glad I did.
Yeah, that's a very interesting shift. It was actually my next question. Yeah, but what drew you from leaving the private sector to go to the varsity kind of environment? Because I imagine they are very different. And I know you've alluded to me a little bit of just what the unseen challenges provided in the varsity environment that people have
Yeah,
no idea that you have to deal with. Like private sector is pretty much, here's a client, I'm working with you. Whereas varsity, I can only imagine, like you've already explained with some of the COVID stuff, you have got not only a faculty of staff now of 30 to 50 people, but you've also got these unseen challenges that people just don't understand, and it's quite a different environment, I can imagine, private to varsity.
yeah. I thrive in chaos.
Wicked.
I like I don't. I'm like I've got to always move. Um, I struggle with like that doesn't mean I need to jump ship. Like I'm very loyal. Like I was there for 12 years, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's not something that I wanted to do at the time. I was really conflicted with that, but I I do well when shit gets weird. Um, so uh, I like the the ability to organize some structure into a chaotic environment. And that was a big piece that drew me. It's like, okay, I know what I can do one on one with a client. I know what I can do with my groups. Um, and at the time, I was seeing 30 to 35 clients a week, and in there, I was still volunteering 10 to 15 hours a week at my rugby club, where I was seeing 150 to 250 athletes a week. I was still coaching high school, so I was still exposed to big groups. But I always felt more comfortable in a group than I did in the one-on-one piece. And that was a big part of it. I do miss the one-on-one because the level of care that you can give versus having to triage when it's me and some students who um, I have to teach everything um, to. Um, like for example, if you have a guy with an injury or whatever, I can't just pawn him off to my first year students. I can't pawn off my kids who are first year student athletes to my first year student coaches, right? So learning how to figure out the best way to work in this environment is where I feel um, comfortable in. Understanding that it makes sense to put your best coaches with your rehab and return to play athletes and your first years not with your fifth years who know what they're doing. And if I haven't taught my fifth years what to do in the time I've had them, I've failed.
Right. Yeah, fascinating. Now, I know you've got there are loads of people that work with you, and there's loads of people that you are constantly coaching outside of the athletic realm with your coaches, your staff. We're seeing a bit of a weird time with times of inflation, academic inflation, where lots of people are coming out with the same piece of paper now. Like you say, the industry is only 25, 30 years old, but now it's more accessible than ever, and people can come out with a ticket that, 30, 40 other thousand other people have got. How has that affected the S&C industry kind of from your angle? I can only imagine you must get hundreds of applications of people with the same piece of paper. What makes
Yeah.
someone stand out? Is it to become more experiential at that point, and it's not so much what credentials you've got on paper, but how much in the trenches time you've got?
I don't know. It fucking sucks, man. It's so hard to decide, right? Like, I used to think experience really mattered, but like, I know coaches who've done this for 20 years and they've done nothing. I know coaches who've done this, for 2 years and they're fucking exceptional. It's so hard to determine. And ultimately, what it boils down to is um, personality has to fit. Um, yeah, I mean, for me, I work at a university. Like, they have to have a degree. I don't believe that um, you can't be just as skilled as someone with a degree if you don't have one. Like, it's totally easy enough to do if you're around the right people and you're reading the right things. I think what the university does is it gives you a direction, um, and it checks some boxes, right? And the old adage of like, we just want to know that you could learn, kind of thing. Well, there are people who are self-learners. I don't think, with the exception of maybe a few courses, my university degree is not what prepped me for this. It was my experiences coupled with a few classes and my connections with other coaches and the people I chose to surround myself with.
Right.
Problem with that is if you don't have that direction or you don't pick the right direction, you're going to be that guy with 20 years experience and you have nothing to show for it.
Right. Okay. So you do need a bit of a mix of both to a point. I like what you said there about personality, though. That's very interesting. Is you get a lot of people that come out with some experience, some credentials. It's like talking to a brick wall.
If you can't put your message out there to the population that you're working with, your job is useless to me.
Right.
And that's the problem I'm seeing with, like, I told you this, like, the number one degree out of the UK is sports science. Like, it's over engineers, medical, anything else. And yeah, it is a saturated market. And the problem is with all this education, with all the learning that we have online, I don't think coaching has got any better. It's not like all of a sudden all these kids are coming out with degrees and they're fucking world beaters. What's happened is they've come out, they're hyper educated, and they don't have the experience needed to get to the level they have to be coaches. Like, I think that there should be a gap between doing your master's and your undergrad. As an example, I don't think many kids know what they want to do when they're 22 years old and they've done their degree. Now, having said that, I'm in a position where I have kids who'll do their undergrad and they want to stay on and do their masters, but I can get them in the gym for 15 to 20 hours a week while they're doing their masters. So if I'm looking at choosing someone who's gone through and done their master's, PhD, and their experiences training their friends in triathlon or their own, doing their own programming versus someone who's done a master's and worked their ass off in the gym and knows how to apply what they've learned, I think it's a no-brainer who I'm going to choose.
Agreed. Yeah. The degree of learning they're going to get in that extra 20 hours a week outside the classroom in the
Yeah,
environment that they arguably want to go into or may want to go into later. It's a massive head start, isn't it? Massive head start.
it is. And I mean, the thing that is weird to me too is, like, we have people in the industry who, are ex-athletes as well, and they bring a perspective that's really valuable. It can be problematic though when it's someone who at 32 has been playing, say, professional hockey for 12 years, realize, holy shit, when I work out properly and I eat properly and I sleep properly, I feel better and I can extend my career and make an extra $10 million. And then they become zealots for whatever helped them do that. Having said that, you also have these people who try to find niche markets, and sell you on a system. And it, part of me thinks that that gets teased out in the education process, like to think a little more critically on things. Because once you've worked with athletes, you know there's no system. You know they're like systems are created because people are stupid. You want them to follow guidelines. Now, should you have? I mean, I take that with a grain of salt. Like we have to have some level of systems, right? We can't have chaos, but it can be organized chaos. We can have ideas and systems where you can still create autonomy and you can still let someone become a skilled practitioner, but there has to be some level of structure to what you're doing. So I prefer like having a loose structure to a system for that sake. And I think with school, you kind of get a little bit of both,
Right.
depending on what cohort you're in and what your peers are like. Because I don't want someone to come out of a rigid system. I want someone who has the flexibility and creativity to adapt to whatever population they're working with. That's why I really encourage kids to personal train. I want to be a strength coach, so I don't want to work with grannies. Well, fuck, you know what? Go rehab somebody who's had a bilateral knee replacement. You're going to learn more doing that than you are just working with U15 kids or elite athletes. You know, there's
Interesting.
principles that are going to be across the board that are going to run true if you follow them correctly. You're just basically tailoring it to the needs of that person,
Yeah.
right? We need to know that, yeah, training a 65-year-old ex-athlete who's had a knee replacement is not the same as training a 22-year-old who blew their ACL out. But there are some parodies there that you can really take. Learning how your bedside manner has to be with someone like that. You know, yeah, our kids are going to be potentially their whole career is going to be changed, and this is all they give a shit about. Well, that 60-year-old wants to be able to go for his hikes and take his grandkids out for a walk and do things like that. So you're still prepping them for something. You're still working back from an end goal, but learning how to discuss those matters with that person is just as valuable.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you get to learn to speak a certain, almost a certain language there. And arguably, if you've got 20% of something in the bank already, it's much easier to get the other 80% than it is if you've got 0% in the bank
Totally,
already. You know,
totally.
you've got a bit of a head start there. And then, you know, when it comes to S&C education outside of the kind of the course domain or the university domain, is there, for the new coaches, I'm thinking, for the people, you know, guys and girls coming up through the ranks and, you know, that apply to work with you, is there an ideal kind of course or route that they should take outside of the degree route? Or does it even exist? I know it's a bit of a kind of trick question, really, I think, but
No, well, that goes back to like the systemizing of things, right? Like we're telling people this is what you should do. What I always suggest is go fucking coach a sport. You know, like I was coaching, I was the head wrestling coach when I was like 18 years old before I went to the States because I'd blown my shoulder out. So I played 2 years of junior football in Canada before I went down. And at that time, I was the head wrestling coach and I coached rugby and football. And I learned more from that than I did from a lot of S&C. Coaching is coaching, in my opinion. What I do is I at the time I thought everybody should coach a sport before they get into coaching athletes in the strength conditioning realm. And then as I got older, I realized that it's not one or the other. It's kind of both.
yeah,
I think sport coaches need to see what we do because
yeah,
um, they don't get the whole triage piece. They
right,
don't get the whole piece of like everybody's got a different ability. They don't understand maybe the principles of strength and conditioning, the basic principles, and
yeah,
how that may make their life a lot easier. Um, they don't get taught. There's no coaching school either. You know, it's
right.
not like you go in and you learn how to be a head football coach. You figure it out on your own. But it might be better if we could teach those aspects to coaches so they understand like this is a key area that you need to understand.
Agreed. Yeah, yeah. When it comes to communication and then working with other staff members, like you say, S&C coaches and physios and understanding what their kind of modalities are, so that your life ultimately is easier and you get an increase in performance from the team or the people that you're working with. Yeah, that's fascinating. I like how you said coaching a sport there. I've definitely noticed from, teaching jiu-jitsu that my understanding, like alongside S&C, they complement each other very well. There's nuggets you can take from each, and they cross over. Yeah, as opposed to just isolating in one, and training, like you say, general pop. Training general population and just kind of like seeing like the demands of a father with 3 kids, who's got, like you say, a dodgy knee or a dodgy hip or something.
Yeah.
You learn a lot in picking apart that puzzle. That's not a wasted, isolated skill, solving that puzzle.
The professionalism piece is key to me as well, right? Like, I treat this like a business, and I think that's an important aspect too. Is like, when I was working with physios and athletic therapists and other types of therapy, osteos and chiros and massage, like, in the private sector, well, that's what I do all day long. You need to have that understanding, like, the professionalism in an email even. It's so important to me, for our staff to understand. You don't say to our head therapist, "Hey, so and so, this guy's got this and this." Like, I want this to be written like, it means something. Like, it's got to be um, well thought out before you do it. It's not just a quick anecdote. It's like, this is what I think we need to do. This is how I'm seeing it. What are your thoughts? Working with a team. You're working with athletes who you want to work in a team. Well, we're doing the same thing. We're working with an IST that needs to all be on the same page.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it was definitely a professional welcome when I arrived at UBC, from yourself and your staff members. I like how, there was a, well, maybe not for much longer, but a shaking hands culture and a looking in the eye and a kind of, decent, holding yourself well, carrying yourself well, communicating positively.
Well, if it's important to me, it becomes important to them,
Right. Yeah.
and they figure it out pretty quickly why I think it's important. Like, I open myself to these things, and I expect them to do the same thing when they have the time and energy to do it, because, um, I don't want to say it's about networking and all that bullshit. I want to say it's communicating with people. Like, getting to learn from other people is valuable. You never know when you might need to call on someone. You never know when you might want to layer in someone's expertise or ask someone something. Everyone's got something valuable in this world.
I agree. They do have something valuable to give. And when it comes to, there was a quote that you made, on a piece you did with Carmen about, coaching, and you had a mention on social media which I thought was absolutely brilliant. I just wanted to paraphrase it, if I may, quickly. It was like, if you state that you're humble, I've got bad news for you. You're not. And if you state that your opportunities are a blessing, it sounds like you fell into your position, and in most cases
Yeah.
you found your position because you worked hard to get there. So don't underplay it and make it sound like divine intervention got you there.
Yeah.
When it comes to the social media side of things, I see it as it's a double-edged sword. You've got a chance to prove your professionalism and exemplify it, or you've got a chance to kind of exemplify non-professionalism and stuff like that, stating that hashtag humble, hashtag blessed.
Yeah.
Do you kind of encourage your guys and girls in your faculty to kind of use social media for positive, or do you kind of say don't bother with it? Is it even
No,
necessary?
I just tell them my piece. I'm a curmudgeon. I fucking hate social media. I just do what you want to do. But I say professionalism is key, right? And the point is that if you're a 25-year-old coach, uh, telling people what to do on social media, you're casting a wide net, and you're influencing someone, even if you have very few followers. And we know how influential people are. And I think we've gotten to the point where everybody is an expert now. So, like, for example, in our last staff meeting, the kids are like, "Well, why don't we do some challenges, or why don't we do this, or why don't we do that on social media?" Because I don't fucking want to. Because I want them to follow structure. We shouldn't be breaking the basic principles of strength and conditioning because, we're in a fucking crisis. We should be, if there's ever a time to continue to pump the importance of consistency, it's now. Now, if you want to really highlight this, because that's what the kids really want to see, highlight the creativity.
Yeah.
We put a row or a push or a press or a squat variation. Show me that you went out to Ronan and you bought a 50-pound bag of soil and you're putting it
Wicked.
on your back or you're holding it in a circle position. But I don't need to see someone doing back handsprings randomly for no purpose. And for me, the social media is a filler for people in our life. It's basically it's a suck. It's a time suck. I'm not saying that there's not value to it because I learn a lot from it. I'm just saying that it's created an individual um, kind of an individual insight into the world. Like it's really showing how selfish I think we are.
Yeah.
I don't believe that you're on social media for the most part because you really want to help people.
Right.
It's because we're feeding an ego. And I'm not saying that to everybody, and I shouldn't blanket that because there's huge value. There's so many people doing such good things. But for every good thing that's being done, there's 20 horrible things.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, they're a dime a dozen. Yeah, absolutely. Wise words. Now, I'm respectful of your time, Joe. I know you got a mad schedule ahead
Yeah.
and probably another 1,000 Zoom meetings to go.
I'm on them till 5 tonight. So
Oh, bless you. Yeah. Okay. Well, just to finish up, Joe, what does the future hold for you? I know it's a big question mark right now, but in the next sort of 5 to 10 years, do you see yourself staying in the kind of the varsity sector? Is it an unknown at this point?
it's unknown, but I see myself in hopefully in a different role. I love what I do. Like I thrive. I love getting up and seeing my guys and girls working hard and doing what they need to do to get better. I love helping people achieve their goals. I see it moving into a different role where it's maybe where I think I could be more impactful, which would be kind of in performance side of things with helping sport coaches understanding things a little bit differently. Like I've always really prided myself on um, surrounding myself with people that are way smarter than me, and hopefully them. I've always told the people who, I mean, I don't think of them as my assistants. Like I learn more from Tavis and Amanda, my grad assistants, than I do on social media, for example. Um, I pride myself on surrounding myself with a good team of people who are going to make me get better at what I'm doing. And I want them to take my job. And if they take my job, it means I've gone on to something bigger and better, hopefully. Um, I see myself going in two directions. One is coach education piece, um, where it's more of an administrative role, but in a still coaching coaches, if you will. So sport coaches and like how to develop a team, like how to utilize grad assistants wisely, how to actually coach and structure load properly, just to kind of more of a performance role, I guess you could say. I don't think it's really out there. We have athletic directors and high performance directors. I don't know if anyone's really doing it that well. Um, and the other place is maybe just going to a smaller school and getting out of the city and developing what we've done at UBC on a smaller scale and um, enjoying that. Like I really like that challenge of going in and ripping everything apart and starting fresh and building a new base as well. The problem with that is it just sucks years off your life, the stress and everything, because um, if you don't have, for that to occur, you'd have to have the administration in place that's got your back. And I have that at UBC, and that's why I was able to do what I was doing.
Right.
And
Okay.
doing what we're doing. And I don't
Yeah.
think you can do that at a lot of places. So,
Okay. Yeah, fascinating. Amazing that you might end up maybe one day full circle for the very coaches that inspired you in the wrestling room and
yeah.
the guys that gave you the psych to go on and pay it forward. Yeah, fantastic. Well,
No.
Joe, thank you so much for coming on today. I know you've got a hectic few weeks ahead. I'd love to, pick this up again, and I feel like we've just scratched the surface, really. So yeah, we'll give the UBC Insta a plug. I'll make sure that's linked on there. I know Tavis is out there posting stuff. Yeah, thanks very much, Joe. And, all the best in this crazy time, and let's check in again soon.
Cheers. All right, Eric. Have a good one.
This episode of the Move Mind podcast was brought to you by CBD Mountain, for sport and fitness CBD. Head over to cbdmountain.com for a range of soft gels, skin balms, oils, and vapes, and purchase online and have the premium quality CBD delivered directly to your door. CBDmountain.com.